We've got one more month left of the year, and I have this amount of books to talk about. Something is wrong here. Today I'm going to do Ariel Bassett's end of the year book tag. So let's answer these questions. Question number 1. Are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? Yeah, this is the main thing that stresses me out in life. This is my currently reading stack. Who let this happen? Oh my gosh! Plato's The Last Day of Socrates. I'm actually really enjoying this. I'm nearly halfway through, thank God. My first proper philosophy book that I've ever read. Really good. I would love to finish this by the end of the year. That's definitely a goal of mine. Next, the other book I'm actively reading right now, is Finnegan of the Rock by Melina Marchetta. Melina is Italian-Australian, I believe, and I've read Looking for Ella Brandy by her before, which I thought was okay. And then I also owned this. My mum gave it to me like ages ago. And this is one of those books that's been sitting on my shelf for like over 10 years. And we'll talk about it later in this video, but I would love to get through my physical TBR. That's one of the goals that I'm currently trying to focus on. So finally picked up this book. I'm only 44 pages in, but I would also love to finish this by the end of the year. And this is a young adult fantasy novel, which I haven't read a young adult book in a bit, but I do feel like I want to read more fantasy, but like adult fantasy is a little scary sometimes. So I just felt like maybe some young adult will remedy that. The other 3 books I'm currently reading are a bit more complicated because of the fact that I don't really care if I finish these by the end of the year or not. But I am currently reading Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. This is, the Russian lit I'm currently trying to read. I do try to read one big classic a year, and this was the book for this year, but it's been a slow process. Nearly halfway through. Maybe over the summer I will pick this up a bit more and get through it. I'm also reading Mythology by Edith Hamilton, and this is a book I'm 82 pages into. Very slow for me once again. I haven't read this book in a minute. I do have the audiobook for this. So when I'm back into an audiobook mood, I was just going to read this. That's the goal with this one. We'll finish it in like 4 months time probably. And I'm also reading Complex PTSD From Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. This is like my nonfiction for the moment. And my friend recommended me this book because I'm very much into psychology. Really enjoying it. I picked it up like last month. Oh no, I picked it up in November. I'm only 27 pages in, but this is one of those books where it requires a very certain type of mood. This book is extremely heavy in its like nature. I'm hoping over the summer to read this one, so over the next 3 months or so. That's my currently reading. I really don't make things easy for myself, do I? That is too much, honestly. Question number 2. Do you have an autumnal book to transition you into the end of the year? It's not autumn right now where I am. It is spring currently, and in 2 days' time it's going to be summer. I live in Australia in the Southern Hemisphere, so do I have a spring to summer book to transition me? Yeah, actually, no, I don't even really have that. I don't read many books with spring or summer vibes. I read a lot of winter reads, just year round. But I did decide to select Sayaka Murata's Life Ceremony for this question because of the cover mostly. Like, this very bright cover is a book I would love to be carrying around at the start of summer to get me into that summer reading mood, and it's also on the shorter side. This is also a short story collection by Murata, and she's one of my favorite authors currently. I'm really liking everything I've read by her so far. I do find her very easy to read, and I prefer to read like easier stuff during the summer and shorter books, like I said. So I think this is like a summer read for me in a sense, even though it probably could be quite dark. Question number 3. Is there a new release you're still waiting for? No, I don't care for new releases. I don't anticipate anything. My way of reading is like picking up something off my shelf or going to a bookstore and just browsing and then discovering something came out. And I'll just be like, whoa, I didn't realize that was a book. And then I'll pick it up. I don't really like look in to investigate what is there to read next because I feel like I'm already quite overwhelmed by what is on my physical TBR. Question number 4. What are 3 books you want to read before the end of the year? Interesting question. I did mention a couple of the books am I currently reading that I'd love to finish by the end of the year. Another 3 books that I would like to read by the end of the year. Will I? Maybe. I'll see. There's already 3 books I've mentioned that I would love to read by the end of the year there. But if I had to pick another 3, I think it would be Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is really short, which is why I sort of want to read it. It's 155 pages and it's a little classic as well. I would love to tick off another classic before the end of the year because I've been feeling like I haven't read enough classics this year. I also would love to read Outline by Rachel Cusk. in December, if possible. This is another book that's like contemporary fiction, really easy to read, like 200 pages, not much on each page. It is a book about like 10 different conversations that this woman has while in Athens, like traveling. So I feel like this might be also like a very summery book. Oh, this actually could be the book to transition me into summer, more so than Murata. I would love to also read this book in December to transition me into summer. And then the other book I would like to read, hopefully in December, if not in the summer, would be The Inner Self by Hugh Mackay, which is another nonfiction psychology book. This is loaned to me, so I actually like need to read this sort of soon. I can't just have this one forever. I've actually got to get around to it. So that's why it's towards the top of my TBR. Depending on when I finish maybe the Plato book, like the philosophy one, I might pick this up afterwards because I don't want to throw too many heavier books onto my currently reading because I know I have a tendency to accidentally do that sometimes. Number 5, is there a book that you think could still shock you and become your favorite book of the year? Yeah, there's definitely a book that I think could shock me in a different type of way. But yes, also could potentially become my favorite book of the year. And that book would be Sayaka Murata's Life Ceremony. I really like her. She's like my current new favorite author. I recently read Earthlings by her as well. And it was like a 4 out of 5. Could have been a 5 out of 5. It had potential. And the first book I read by her, Convenience Store Woman, was a 3 out of 5. So if the pattern continues, this should be a 5 out of 5. The only thing that makes me a little hesitant is that it is short stories. I'm not a big short stories fan, but we'll see. Number 6, have you already started making reading plans for 2023? Yeah, you bet. I made plans for like 2062. I'm that person that plans out my entire life, like detail for detail. I think I would like to read more than I read this year. Firstly, I think I would like to put my reading goal up to like 40 or 50 books again. I read 50 books in 2021 and I brought it down in 2022 just because I wanted to read some thicker books. Like I wanted to put a bit more time into that. I haven't really done that. I tried with Crime and Punishment, but it was a failure. I'm going to up my goal again to a bit higher. And the second thing I really want to do is I want to read more stuff from my physical TBR. I never really had this goal before, but I actually really want to get through a lot of my TBR. I have like a bookshelf and the top 2 shelves are all like to be read. And then the bottom 4 are books that I've read. I would like just one shelf to be books I haven't read yet. So I would love to bring down my physical TBR by a whole entire shelf. Like that would be a nice goal for next year, I think. I will do a video very soon also about my physical TBR, so you can look forward to that, where I'll just go through the whole entire thing. My third reading plan for next year is like just the idea of some of the books I want to start with, or at least, get around to at some point in 2023, and so I'm just going to take you through those books now. I would really like to read Eragon by Christopher Paolini. This is going to be a buddy read with one of my friends, but he is currently reading Harry Potter. He's up to number 6 right now, so he'll be done soon. And once he's done with that, we're going to do a buddy read of this book because he loved this series growing up and I've never read it. So I am excited because I'm getting into more of a fantasy mood and this is going to help with that. I also really want to do a couple of classics rereads. So firstly, I want to do a reread of Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I first read this book when I was like 13 or 14 and I am now 26. I've just turned 26. Happy birthday to me. The idea of moving into my late 20s scares the living daylights out of me, but if there's any positive to come out of it, it's that maybe I could reread some of my favorite books from my teens and get a completely different experience out of it. So I feel like it's time. It's been about 13 years since I read this book. I first read it around 13. That's it. I think I'm going to read this book every 13 years, especially because it is a horror. And it's like 13, 13 is like the unlucky number. So I feel like it makes sense. I'm going to read this book every 13 years of my life until I die, I think. This is my favorite book of all time, by the way, if I didn't say that. So yeah, I am so scared to read this book and to not like it anymore. And then it's like, what's my favorite book? I don't have one anymore. I will obviously do a reading vlog when I read this book. And then I also would love to reread The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath because the original edition I read of The Bell Jar, it was horrendous. It was so ugly. I think it really detracted from the reading experience just because I didn't really like the edition I was holding, to be honest. And I also think I was maybe a bit too young to read The Bell Jar when I first read it, and I think I could get a bit more out of it now. 4 series that I would like to complete in 2023. Firstly, I finished Akira. That was like 2022's goal, is I really wanted to finish Akira, the series, which is a manga series. And then next year in 2023, I would really like to finish the Sandman series by Neil Gaiman. So I've read 1 to 6, and I think there's around 12 or 13 of them. This is number 7 that I own already, so I will be reading this hopefully early next year. And then after that, I need to collect all the rest of them, the other 5 or so and finish this series. And then the fourth goal I have in regards to the specific books I want to read, after Crime and Punishment, I would really like to read another big, intimidating book. I have a few contenders of books I think could probably be the next one I read after Crime and Punishment, so I'll show you those now. I think it's probably either going to be The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, if I'm in a fantasy mood. I have read the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. I actually quite enjoyed it, and I've heard that The Way of Kings, this Stormlight, is the Stormlight Archive, I think it's called? Yep. Is good, apparently. That's what I've heard. I really love this little edition. This mass paperback edition is very, very cute. I love the front cover. I just love everything about this, which makes me want to read it more, thank God. And this book is 1,200 pages. Oh my absolute Jesus. I also might read The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. This is another Russian classic, but I don't know. I feel like I was really excited to read a bunch of Russian classics, but then Crime and Punishment hasn't really been everything that I hoped for, unfortunately. But Crime and Punishment still might turn around for me, and if I really liked that and I want to read more Russian classics, I reckon this is the next Russian classic I would like to read. This book is on the bit of the shorter side. It's only around 400 pages, which could be great for me, actually. I think I might read this book next year. Just to get classic off the list, one that does sort of scare me a little bit because it is Russian literature, but actually is on the shorter side. And the last book I might potentially read next year in regards to these books that might be larger and more intimidating is Octavia E. Butler's Seed to Harvest. I think this is more of a modern classic, which I've heard only good things about. Around 800 pages, and I believe this book is like fantasy on some level. She gained international prominence with powerful, richly textured stories that address universal issues of race, gender, politics, religion, and sexuality. That sounds amazing to me. Like, I feel like I'm gonna love this book. I don't have the best version. I have a bit of a tatted up version here. I think my stepdad actually gave me this book, I believe. He really liked it, maybe. I don't know how I got this book, but I got it. And I feel like I'm gonna like it. But yeah, just the 800 pages obviously scares me a little bit. But this could be one of those books that I start reading it and I really fly through it because it is more modern. When did this book come out? This book came out in 2007, I believe. Every time I go over to my shelf to pick up something, I do look at this book, I give it a hard look, and I'm like, not today, but soon enough. That's my end of the year book tag. Wow. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what books you want to read by the end of the year and what books you like to read in 2023. And I'll see you soon. Bye.